The emergency beacon from Kepler Station pierced through the void of space, reaching Earth's military command center at 0300 hours. Admiral James stood before the massive holographic display, his weathered face growing pale as the transmission played. "This is Commander Vale of the Valoran Defense Force." The alien's melodic voice crackled through static. "The Galactic Council has betrayed us. They are systematically eliminating our colonies. We fought alongside humanity for peace, and now they mark us for extinction because we dared to stand with you." The transmission cut to screams and plasma fire. Then silence. James clenched his fists. The Valorans had been humanity's first true allies when Earth joined the galactic community 5 years ago. While other species looked down upon humans as primitive newcomers, the Valorans had extended friendship. They shared technology, defended Earth's right to colonize, and stood against the Council's discriminatory policies. "Sir, we're receiving confirmed reports," Lieutenant Garcia announced, her voice tight. 17 Valoran worlds have gone dark. Population estimates suggest over 3 billion casualties. The war room erupted in angry voices. Captain Roberts slammed his fist on the tactical table. "Those bastards." The Valorans voted against the Council's motion to limit human expansion. "This is retaliation." "It's more than that," James said quietly, silencing the room. "The Council fears any alliance that challenges their power. By destroying the Valorans, they send a message to anyone who might support humanity." The holographic display updated with new intelligence. Council fleets surrounded the remaining Valoran homeworld, their massive dreadnoughts forming an impenetrable blockade. The purple-skinned Valorans, peaceful by nature, possessed advanced technology but lacked military strength. They were scholars and artists, not warriors. "Admiral, the President is asking for recommendations," an aide informed him. James studied the tactical display. Humanity's fleet was smaller than the Council's, their technology less advanced. A direct confrontation would be suicide. But humans had something the Council never expected: the ability to think beyond conventional warfare. "Contact the Black Fleet," James ordered, causing several officers to exchange glances. The Black Fleet was humanity's secret project. Ships designed not for open battle, but for something far more devastating. Within hours, reports flooded in from Valoran refugees. The Council's enforcer units showed no mercy, executing civilians and destroying cultural sites. Ancient libraries burned, containing millions of years of knowledge. Children were separated from parents and sent to re-education centers. Dr. Allen, Earth's xenobiologist who had worked closely with Valoran scientists, watched the footage with tears in his eyes. "They're erasing an entire civilization," he whispered. "The Valorans helped us cure 3 major diseases. They asked for nothing in return." The Council's official statement arrived that evening, delivered by High Magistrate Korvax himself. The insectoid leader's compound eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. "The Valoran species has been deemed a destabilizing influence on galactic peace. Their elimination is necessary for the greater good. Any species that interferes will share their fate." The message was clear. Earth was next if they acted, but humanity had survived by being unpredictable. While the Council expected fear or diplomatic protests, Earth's response was silence. No angry denunciations, no pleading for mercy. Just silence. In hidden shipyards across the solar system, engineers worked around the clock. The Black Fleet's vessels were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Where Council ships were massive and imposing, human vessels were small, fast, and equipped with experimental jump drives, reverse-engineered from Valoran gifts. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the lead stealth ship, watching his crew prepare. These weren't regular military personnel, but volunteers who understood the mission's importance. "The Council thinks we're weak because we're young," he told them. They think we'll cower while our friends burn. They're about to learn why humans survived every extinction event on Earth. As night fell on Earth, billions of humans watched. Their screens, waiting. The Valerans had stood by humanity when no one else would. They had shared their knowledge, their culture, and their friendship freely. Now, as the last Valoran cities burned under Council bombardment, humanity prepared. To show the galaxy why loyalty mattered more than power, the revenge would not be about conquest or destruction. It would be about justice, delivered with the cold precision that only a species forged in survival could manage. 3 days after the massacre, the Galactic Council convened in their crystalline citadel, orbiting the ancient star Proxima. High, Magistrate Korvax sat at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by representatives from 50 species. The atmosphere was one of satisfaction. The Valoran problem had been solved. The operation was successful, announced General Theron of the Altarian Guard. Valoran resistance has ceased. Their surviving population, less than 10,000 individuals, has been relocated to containment facilities. Murmurs of approval echoed through the chamber. Only the empty seat reserved for Earth's ambassador drew attention. Humanity had recalled their representative without explanation. The humans show wisdom in their silence, Korvax stated, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Perhaps they finally understand their place. Unknown to the Council, 47 human stealth ships had already penetrated their space. Captain Miller's vessel, the Ghost, drifted silently past Council patrol ships, its experimental cloaking field bending light and sensor waves around it. The technology was crude by galactic standards, but effective enough. Phase 1 complete, Miller reported through quantum encryption to Admiral James. All ships in position. On Earth, James coordinated with global leaders in an underground bunker. President Williams, a former military strategist herself, studied the deployment map. The Council expects us to attack their fleet or planets. They've prepared for conventional warfare, which is why we won't give it to them, James replied. The Shadow Protocol targets something far more valuable, their reputation and control. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of attacking Council military assets, humanity would expose their crimes to every species in the galaxy, simultaneously. But first, they needed evidence the Council couldn't deny or suppress. Lieutenant Tom aboard the stealth ship Whisper had the most dangerous assignment. His team infiltrated the Council's data fortress, a moon-sized facility containing records of every Council decision and action for millennia. The fortress was considered impenetrable, protected by automated defenses and quantum encryption. But humans had learned something from Valoran. Scientists before their death, the Council's security systems had a fatal flaw. They were designed to stop brute force attacks and sophisticated hacking attempts, not the primitive approach humans employed. Tom's team used physical infiltration, crawling through maintenance tunnels the Council deemed too small for any intelligent species to use. Humans, descendants of persistence hunters, could squeeze through spaces others couldn't imagine navigating. "We're in," Tom whispered into his comm as his team reached the core data chamber. The room hummed with energy, millions of data crystals storing the Council's history. Beginning download. While Tom's team worked, other ships executed their missions. The Phantom, commanded by Captain Davis, deployed thousands of microsatellites around Council worlds. These tiny devices, no larger than pebbles, would serve a crucial purpose when the time came. The Council's first indication something was wrong came from their internal security. "Sir, we're detecting anomalies in our data access logs," a technician reported to the security chief. "Investigate immediately," the chief ordered, his 6 arms moving across multiple control panels. But it was too late. Tom's team had already extracted what they needed, not just evidence of the Valoran massacre, but records of dozens of other genocides the Council had orchestrated over centuries. Species eliminated for being disruptive. Worlds sterilized for refusing counsel. Authority. Entire cultures erased from history. My God, Tom breathed as he reviewed the files. The Valorans weren't the first. They've been doing this for thousands of years. The extraction was where things got complicated. Council forces detected the Whisper as it attempted to leave the system. Alarms blared across the fortress as defensive platforms activated. They found us. The pilot shouted as plasma beams scorched space around them. Tom made a decision that would become legendary. Instead of trying to escape with the data, he transmitted it to all 47 stealth ships simultaneously. If we don't make it, make sure the galaxy sees this. The Whisper took heavy damage, its engines failing as Council interceptors closed in. But Miller's ghost was already moving, along with the rest of the Black Fleet. They had what they needed. Back on Earth, humanity's best programmers and communication specialists prepared for the next phase. The microsatellites deployed by the Phantom began connecting, forming an independent communication network the Council couldn't control. Sir, we've lost contact with the Whisper, Garcia reported to Admiral James, her voice heavy. James closed his eyes briefly, honoring the sacrifice. They knew the risks. Make sure their sacrifice counts. As the Council celebrated the destruction of one human ship, they had no idea that in 12 hours, every screen, every communication device, every public display in the galaxy would simultaneously broadcast the truth they had hidden for millennia. At exactly 1200 Galactic Standard Time, every communication device in Council space activated simultaneously. Screens in homes, public squares, and government buildings lit up with the same message. Citizens of the galaxy, you have been deceived. High Magistrate Korvax was addressing the Council Assembly when the main chamber's holographic display overrode all controls. His compound eyes widened as classified footage began playing. Council forces executing unarmed Valoran civilians, children crying as their parents were vaporized, ancient temples demolished by orbital bombardment. Shut it down, Korvax roared. His usual composure shattered. We can't, sir. The technical chief responded frantically. The signal is coming from everywhere and nowhere. Our own communication grid is being used against us. Admiral James watched from Earth's command center as humanity's plan unfolded. The microsatellites created an unstoppable cascade effect. Each one received and retransmitted the signal, using the Council's own network infrastructure. The more the Council tried to block it, the stronger the signal became. The broadcast was carefully crafted. First came the Valoran massacre, shown in undeniable detail from the Council's own surveillance systems. Then older atrocities, the extinction of the Keepers 50 years ago, the sterilization of the Harmony worlds, the slave camps on Dark Station 9. But humanity didn't just show violence. They included testimonies from survivors, hidden for decades in Council detention centers. A Valoran child spoke directly to the camera. They told us we were dangerous because we helped the humans, but all we did was share medicine and friendship. On the planet Altair Prime, crowds gathered in the streets, watching in horror. Many had believed the Council's propaganda about necessary interventions. Now they saw the truth, genocide disguised as peacekeeping. Captain Roberts, commanding the stealth ship Shadow, monitored reactions across different worlds. Sir, we're seeing mass protests on 17 Council worlds. Military units on 3. Planets are refusing orders. The Council's response was swift but desperate. Korvax appeared on emergency broadcasts, claiming the footage was fabricated by human propaganda specialists. This is an attack on our unified peace. Do not believe these lies? But humanity had anticipated this. The second wave of broadcasts included something undeniable: the Council's own digital signatures on every execution order. Korvax's personal seal on documents authorizing genocide. Dr. Allen, who had prepared the scientific evidence, explained in the broadcast, "We're transmitting the quantum signatures of these documents. Any scientist in the galaxy can verify their authenticity. These are not forgeries. This is your leadership's true face." The impact was immediate and devastating. On the trading world of Marcus Hub, merchants refused to sell to Council representatives. The Andromedan Federation, long loyal to the Council, announced they were reviewing their alliance. Even species that feared humans began questioning. Council authority but the masterstroke came from an unexpected source. Commander Vale, the Valoran officer whose distress call had started everything, appeared in the broadcast. He had survived, rescued by a human stealth team just before his station's destruction. "My people were massacred not for any crime, but for choosing friendship over fear," Vale said, his purple skin scarred from plasma burns. "The humans risk everything to show you this truth. They could have stayed silent and safe. Instead, they chose justice." The Council's military began mobilizing, but they faced a crisis. Half their forces came from member species now questioning their loyalty. On the fortress world of Titan, an entire fleet refused to deploy against Earth. General Theron himself watched his own soldiers laying down their weapons. "We won't fight for murderers," a young Altarian officer told him in desperation. Korvax authorized the deployment of the Omega Fleet, automated warships that needed no crew, designed for absolute destruction. These machines had been banned by galactic treaty, but the Council was beyond caring about laws. "Sir, detecting massive energy signatures from Council Prime," Lieutenant Garcia reported to Admiral James. "They're activating the Omega Fleet." James had expected this. Phase 3, all ships acknowledge. The 46 remaining stealth ships, the Whisper's crew had been confirmed lost, moved to new positions. They weren't going to fight the Omega Fleet directly. That would be suicide. Instead, they had one more revelation to broadcast deep in the Council's own archives. Tom's team had found evidence of the Omega Fleet's true purpose. It wasn't built for external threats, but for controlling member species. The Council had always planned to use it if their authority was challenged as the mechanical fleet powered up. Every species in the galaxy would see what the Council really was, not protectors, but tyrants willing to burn the galaxy to maintain power. The Omega Fleet's emergence from Council Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. 100 automated dreadnoughts, each the size of a small moon, began their systematic advance toward Earth. Their dark hulls absorbed light, making space itself seem to bend around them. Admiral James stood before Earth's United Military Command, representatives from every nation watching grimly. "The Council just validated everything we exposed. They're willing to use banned weapons to silence us." "How long until they reach Earth?" President Williams asked. 72 hours at their current speed," James replied. "But they won't get here." The Admiral's confidence puzzled many, but humanity's true strategy was about to unfold. While this galaxy watched the Omega Fleet's advance, Captain Miller's remaining stealth ships executed their final mission. On the planet Cirrus, home to the galaxy's greatest engineers, Chief Designer Kren watched the broadcasts with growing anger. His species had helped design the Omega Fleet centuries ago, believing it would protect peaceful worlds. "We were fools," he muttered, then turned to his staff. "Activate the Terminus Protocol." Unknown to the Council, when the Omega Fleet was built, several species had insisted on secret failsafes. They never trusted absolute power without accountability. Now, those ancient precautions would be tested. Meanwhile, the human stealth ship Phoenix, commanded by Captain Anderson, approached the Andromedan Federation's capital. Anderson carried humanity's most important message yet, not threats or demands, but an offer. Asterisk, we don't seek to rule or destroy, Anderson told the Andromedan High Assembly. We seek justice and a new way forward. Join us not as subjects or allies, but as equals in rebuilding what the Council corrupted. The response was immediate. Admiral Zorin of the Andromedan Guard stood up. My grandfather died defending Council ideals. I thought he died for peace. Now I know he died for tyrants. He turned to his fellow officers. The humans showed us truth. When they could have stayed silent, we stand with Earth. The defection cascade began. Within hours, 30 species announced their withdrawal from the Council. More importantly, they shared military codes, defensive frequencies, and tactical data with humanity. The Omega Fleet, for all its power, had a critical weakness. It required periodic updates from Council command stations to maintain its targeting. Parameters. These stations, scattered across space, were operated by member species now in open revolt. Lieutenant Garcia coordinated the operation from Earth. Station 7 has gone dark. Station 12 is transmitting corrupted data. Station 15 is actively sending shutdown commands. Without proper updates, the Omega Fleet's artificial intelligence began making errors. Ships collided with asteroids they should have avoided. Targeting systems locked onto empty space. The magnificent terror weapons became confused giants stumbling through the void. But Korvax wasn't finished. In the Council Citadel, he activated emergency protocols, taking direct control of the fleet through a quantum entanglement system. If the galaxy burns, so be it, he declared to his remaining loyal followers. Order must be maintained. This was the moment humanity had truly prepared for. Dr. Allen and his team had studied Valoran quantum technology extensively. They had learned something crucial. Quantum entanglement could be disrupted by creating paradox conditions. Asterisk. Initiate paradox storm, James ordered. Every human ship, station, and satellite began broadcasting quantum interference simultaneously. The signal was simple but effective. It created a feedback loop in the entanglement system. The more Korvax tried to control the fleet, the more chaotic the commands became. On the bridge of the Ghost, Captain Miller watched as the Omega Fleet began firing on empty space, their weapon systems completely scrambled. It's working. They're blind and confused. But the real victory came from an unexpected source. Commander Vale, speaking on behalf of the Valoran survivors, made an announcement that changed everything. We forgive the species who were forced to participate in our massacre. We know you were tools of tyranny, not willing executioners. Join us in building something better. This act of forgiveness broke something in the galaxy's collective conscience. Species that had participated in Council atrocities, consumed by guilt, found redemption in the Valorans' words. The Altarian Guard, who had led the massacre, publicly surrendered to human authority and offered their fleets for protection of refugees. General Theron himself arrived at Earth in a small shuttle, carrying something unprecedented, Korvax's. Resignation and the Council's official surrender, signed by the remaining magistrates who had overthrown him. The Council is dissolved, Theron announced. We submit to galactic judgment. The Omega Fleet, without commands, began shutting down one by one. Their dark hulls drifted silently in space, monuments to the Council's final failure. But humanity's response surprised everyone again. Instead of claiming victory or demanding punishment, Admiral James made a different announcement. We call for a galactic assembly where every species has equal voice. Not conquerors and conquered, but neighbors working toward genuine peace. Asterisk 6. Months after the Council's fall, the first Galactic Assembly convened on New Eden, a neutral world chosen for its symbolic value. It had been lifeless until 30 species worked together to terraform it. Representatives from every known civilization gathered in the great amphitheater, built with architectural elements from each culture. Admiral James, now serving as Earth's senior representative, stood beside Commander Vale. The Valoran had recovered from his injuries, though the scars remained as reminders of the price of standing against tyranny. "We gather not as victors and defeated," James addressed the assembly, "but as survivors of a system that failed us all." The assembly's first act was establishing the Truth Commission, led by Dr. Allen and scholars from various species. Their mandate was simple: document every council atrocity, identify victims, and ensure such horrors never happened again. "My people number less than 8,000 now," Vale told the commission on its first day. "But we choose to help build the future rather than mourn the past. This is the Valoran way." The Valoran's forgiveness inspired others. The Altarians, who had carried out the massacre under council orders, pledged their entire military to protecting refugee worlds. General Theron himself volunteered to serve under human command, accepting demotion to captain as penance. On Earth, President Williams signed the Universal Rights Charter, a document that guaranteed every sentient being fundamental protections regardless of species or world of origin. "Never again will fear justify genocide," she declared, but challenges remained. Former council loyalists had fled to the Outer Rim, establishing the Remnant Coalition. They launched guerrilla attacks on assembly worlds, trying to destabilize. The New Order Captain Miller, now commanding the Integrated Defense Fleet, tracked these insurgents carefully. "They're desperate and dangerous," he reported to the assembly. "But they're also revealing every hidden base and secret supporter." Real transformation came from unexpected cooperation. Human doctors worked with Andromedan healers to cure diseases that had plagued both species. Altarian engineers helped upgrade Earth's infrastructure using sustainable technology. The Keepers, thought extinct, were found in hidden colonies and welcomed back to Galactic Society. Young Tom, promoted after his heroic data theft, led the new Transparency Initiative. Every government action, every military movement, every trade agreement was recorded and made publicly available. "Secrets bred the Council's tyranny," he explained. "Openness will prevent its return." The Omega Fleet, those terrible weapons of destruction, were repurposed. Their hulls were converted into mobile hospitals and refugee centers. The ship that would have destroyed Earth became a medical station, serving the frontier worlds. Children across the galaxy learned a new history. In schools on 100 worlds, they studied the Valoran massacre not as a victory or defeat, but as a lesson in the cost of compliance with tyranny and the value of standing for justice. Captain Roberts, now an academy instructor, taught mixed classes of human, Altarian, and Andromedan cadets. "Strength isn't about the size of your fleet or the power of your weapons," he told them. "It's about knowing when to fight and what's worth fighting for." A year after the Assembly's formation, something remarkable happened. The Remnant Coalition sent a delegation requesting amnesty. They had seen the prosperity and genuine peace the new system created. Former High Magistrate Korvax himself, aged and defeated, stood trial. "I believed order required control," he testified. "I believed peace meant silence. I was wrong." The Assembly's judgment surprised many. Instead of execution or imprisonment, Korvax was sentenced to serve in the Truth Commission, documenting the very atrocities he had ordered. "Understanding how we failed is the only way to prevent future failures," the tribunal explained. Commander Vale was elected as the first Valerin, representative to the Security Council, a new body that replaced the Council's military authority. His first act was proposing the Memorial Worlds Initiative, planets left, untouched as monuments to species lost to genocide. Earth, once considered a primitive backwater, became the de facto capital of free space. Not through conquest, but through moral authority earned by risking everything for justice. As the Second Assembly gathered, Admiral James reflected on the journey. We didn't win through superior firepower or advanced technology. We won because we remembered something. The Council forgot. Power without accountability is tyranny, and tyranny always falls to those willing to speak truth. The galaxy had learned a painful lesson. True peace comes not from fear or control, but from justice, transparency, and the courage to stand against wrong, no matter the cost. Humanity's swift and deadly revenge had not been through violence, but through exposing truth and offering redemption. The Valorans, reduced but not broken, had become symbols of resilience. Their few thousand survivors inspired billions, proving that genocide could kill bodies, but not ideals. The New Age had begun, written not in blood, but in hope. The end, asterisk.